Perfect. Now I have your number. Thanks.
Hey, I'm Robbie Kramer. You're listening to the Leverage Podcast, where we discuss using your social skills to hack dating, travel, finding your dream job, and becoming a complete man.
What made you want to get married in the first place?
Oh, that's a interesting story. Well, I mean, we met her and we met each other. I met her in this very serendipitous way. I met her actually at Burning Man, and I wasn't planning to go to Burning Man. I didn't want to go to Burning Man.
That's the start of almost every Burning Man story. I'm not going this year. I ended up on the playa.
And then your life changed forever.
Right.
It's so I end up going just a couple weeks in between. I went without going into too much detail, but this friend of mine that he actually has a low airplane. He was like, I want to go to Burning Man. It's like, oh, it's like if we flow in, then I'll be open to go to Burning Man. And literally after meeting with him, I went to meet another friend, and she was like, I'm not going to. I don't want to go to Burning Man this year. You're gonna take my ticket, and you're gonna stay with this camp. And I was like, wait, what?
The playa provides, they say. It was all just handed to you. Yeah.
Like literally. And then my buddy broke his leg, so he couldn't fly his plane. So he had to get an RV and all. So anyway, long story short, I ended up in Burning Man. And we just connected with, that's wasn't so interesting because, that's easy to connect with people. But I was just, we just share, we want the same things out of life. We look at life in the same way. And I was spirituality is very important to me. I meditate every day. Like I ask the existential questions of who am I? What's the meaning of life? Like that, I have my practices. So I was even turning one of my rooms in the house that I live in into a meditation room, like a temple room. And when I met her, she was like, "Oh my God, that's awesome! Let's make it like this or like that." And I'm like, "What do you mean, let's make it like?" So she was really involved um, in that process, and she was also committed to her spiritual practice a lot, and that really attracted me. And then we went to India to get this spiritual object and stuff like that. And um, we joked that we had like a spiritually arranged marriage, where spirit brought us together and wanted us to get married.
That's cool.
So that's, and then it was so weird because when I check in with myself and with my body and when I meditate on it, my whole being was a yes to being with this woman and to marrying her, and never question it. And I never had that. I've had long-term relationship, but part of me always knew I don't, I knew that it wasn't it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time in my life where just my my whole being was like, yeah, I can see myself with the rest of my life with this woman.
I had the same experience when I met my wife. I was just exactly like you said. I was just a yes. I was like, yeah. As before, prior to that, I was always like, oh, I mean, that sounds scary. That sounds like, part of me was definitely like, I don't know if I can go through with that. Um, and I'd always heard that expression, like, when you know, and I didn't really. I was like, it just sounds like something people say.
yeah.
But it worked for me. Sounds like it worked for you.
Whoa.
Well, worked meaning it's out there, I guess.
Story
yeah.
Story hasn't ended yet.
Right.
But maybe.
I'm not talking about the ending, just the beginning, I guess, getting into a relationship or a marriage.
So, yeah, and also a lot of I love the outdoors. She loves the outdoors. I'm very outgoing and extroverted. She's outgoing and extroverted too. Like, so we, like, weekend comes, so we throw shit in the car, go somewhere. Like I always wanted a partner that's adventurous, and ready to be up for any adventure, you name it, and like we don't even have to talk about it. We're going. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of things like wow, like this, we're very compatible. I It was just a funny side story. I went to Maui like after she moved out to see some friends, and I saw this gypsy tarot card lady, and she started pulling tarot cards. She's like, "Oh, you here because of our relationship?" I'm like, "Yeah." She kept pulling. It reminded me of Eastern Europe. Um, and she's like, "Wow, I don't get it. You guys are perfect together. You guys are so compatible. Like you guys." And then she kept pulling more cards. Like, "Oh, bad communication, bad." But yeah, it's just simply we both got really defensive. We both got
Hmm.
very wound, like because every little thing, because when you're in this relationship, every little thing hurts, and then you get stuck in this pattern of just being defended and sticking your heels in the ground and being stubborn, and that just became too much. And I don't know if we could have ever come out of it. Like I feel like now I'm talking to you as from a more place of responsibility and seeing how I was so defensive and how I was so um, hurt and wounded and all these things. I was only able to see that, I recognized that after she left. So I don't know if I was so stuck in that rut. So like it's been a huge gift that she left.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I
How
don't
long ago
know,
was that?
like 2.5 months now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So having that space allowed you to really reflect and kind of see the forest from the trees. Sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. So because you're so enmeshed, you're so in it, and then it's every day. Because once you're in this trigger state, you're constantly triggering you, so you don't have enough space to really take that responsibility that I'm referring to.
And were you guys like with each other all day, every day? Would you go to work and would she go to work? Like, how much time were you spending together?
I mean, she actually, when I met her, she was working in corporate America, and she hated it. She's a licensed CPA. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, well, just and I'm a contractor, like I'm a general contractor. I'm a builder. I'm not, here we're talking about me working with people, but I also have a construction business. So I was like, oh my God, like your skills and my skills, we could be millionaires in no time. Um, so uh, we so she quit her corporate job and started helping with my business. So we did also work together, but I would go out to job sites and stuff, and she would stay home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we were pretty enmeshed on many levels. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that like even if I like have to leave for just a few hours, that time apart allows me to really kind of reflect and get more clear on kind of on everything because we're together like 24/7, and I feel like just a little bit of time apart can be super helpful.
Yeah. Space. Space. I mean, that's another thing about the relationship. I think it's mm, being able to talk about all those things and be able to hear each other, be able to give each other these things without getting defensive again, right?
Hmm.
So, oh, let's have a conversation about space. I need space, you need space. How do we give each other space? Sometimes, and you've heard about attachment theory, like
Hmm.
the anxious, avoidant, secure, all this. If someone's anxious, like, oh, I need space, they get needy and they're like, what do you mean you need space? You got to get away from me. Like, what do you, then the avoidance like, oh, leave me alone. So how do we have adult conversations like, hey, I need space to process it. So I'm not going away from you because I don't love you.
Right.
Um,
What's
just
your guys' attachment style?
I end up being more avoidant, and she ended up being more anxious.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, I feel like ours is probably like that, but I can easily go anxious too sometimes.
Yeah.
She's almost never avoidant, but if she does get upset with me, then she just like won't talk to me for, you know, she just
Then
puts me on ice, and it's the worst. It's very like it's tough when that happens. So
uh,
it's interesting to me how, and I've studied attachment theory quite a bit. It's interesting to me how different people can trigger you to be like on any end of that spectrum.
yeah.
So,
And then recognizing that and coming back to, I think one of the biggest thing about attachment theory is to know that it's not about you. That's kind of what my friend was saying. Oh, they're going through something. It's not about you. Don't take it personally. Go be there for them, right? That's the secure type. When if she's coming at you with something, it's like, oh, like what's happening? What do you need? I'm here. I love you. I got you. Um, and offering that to her instead of getting defensive and
right.
just these
I
little
mean,
things.
I know I go into the typical like, dude thing where she'll come to me with a problem and I'll just immediately try to solve it. And my attitude will be like, this isn't a problem. Like, condescending, you're stupid for coming to me with this problem. Like, you know how to fix this. Like, just go do it. And she's not needing that at all. Like, she knows how to solve the problem. It's
Yeah.
not about that at all. It's about like, I want to be heard and I want to connect. Um, and I always have to remind myself, okay, don't solve problems. That doesn't work. It's just gonna create a problem for you.
Oh
And no
man.
matter how many times I hear it, I still make the mistake.
Yeah, but it's so different than dating, right? Because a lot of time in dating you almost have to do the opposite. Like, um everyone with leading, like, oh, lead her or show her the way or stuff like that, where in a relationship, like in this case, it's not necessarily that you still have to lead at times, but it's so nuanced, like when do you lead, when do you follow, when do you are neutral, when do you come together as intimate partners and have these little rituals. And some people say also in the bedroom you only do bedroom things, right? You never talk about business or money or bills. You only do things you do in the bedroom. And when you have these conversations, almost like you're going to talk about money or bills or whatever, need like things that need to get done, chores and stuff, you do those on the dining table or whatever, or you have these places and you
They
honor
say
them.
don't put your office in the bedroom. Oh, whoops. Fuck that one up.
I mean,
No,
whatever. It's figuring it out. What works for everyone is different.
yeah. Well, so in my apartment in Kiev, I have the luxury of having the separation, but you know, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But going back to what you were saying before, um, I'm really curious. So like when I first, because you were talking about the difference between like dating and relationships, one of the things that I noticed when I was dating a lot, I found that I was always playing these sort of push pull games with most of the women I was meeting,
Hmm.
and I was always very like the better I felt like I got at dating, the better I was at knowing when to push, when to pull, and managing those investment levels. And I got to the point where I never really like made a mistake. Like if a girl wasn't that into me, I would just pull back and ignore her and do a bunch of things, and then eventually she'd come back and I'd
Yeah.
get the W, right? Uh, and but then I noticed once when I met my wife, like there wasn't this all the games like kind of stopped, like, and we both were just kind of like a yes to everything. Um, we both wanted to hang out more. I didn't have to play the push pull game, and she didn't want to either. Um, and I found like that I'm curious if you had the same experience when you met your wife, or prior to that, if you were having those other sort of relationships. Because I feel like so many people who are single and they say they're looking for someone, they're really not. because they're not willing to really put themselves out there. They're not a yes, or maybe they're dating people that they know that they shouldn't be dating. So they're like a half yes. They're like, yeah, I'm a yes to sex, but I'm not a yes to like intimate, like conversation and connection, like a deeper connection. Like, yeah, I'm down to bang, but I'm not down to like really get emotionally naked with you, that sort of thing. Did you
Yeah.
find that when you met your wife?
Yeah, it's
Support for the Leverage podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. They are the leaders in male grooming. Recently, I was listening to a podcast about the Ukraine war situation. Really awesome podcast. I listen to it almost daily. Robert Turkla Speak the Truth, it's called. And he was doing an ad for Manscaped. And I was just about to buy the product because I was looking for a new ball trimmer. And then I was actually approached by Manscaped, and they said, "Hey, we saw your podcast. We're wondering if you want to, help us advertise." I'm like, "This is great. I was gonna buy it anyways." So they sent me the product for free. I tested this thing out. This is the Manscaped 4.0 package. This is a lawnmower. It's called the Lawnmower 4.0. It's a awesome shaver. It's got a cool light on it, and it's got this guard right here. If you can see that, it's like a plastic guard that really makes a huge difference compared to the other shavers I've tried. Um, I can feel much more at ease while I'm doing the work down there, and it's probably saved me like 15 to 20 minutes on my. Usually I do it weekly, my weekly shaving routine. So when you get the 4.0 package, not only does it come with a lawnmower 4.0, but it comes with the weed whacker. This is for your nose and ear hair trimmers. Ooh, getting one there. Feels kind of good. It comes with this very nice travel bag and some stuff that make your balls smell amazing. The crop reviver, spray this on. My wife is impressed. And the crop preserver. This is ball deodorant. Really great. I was the best part is they sent me these boxers. It came with the package, also the t-shirt. And this stuff is so freaking comfortable. I need to figure out if I could just buy these on the site. I probably can. I haven't looked into that, but I was like, maybe I should just buy the whole package again so I can get another pair of boxers, which would be obviously really stupid. But anyways, Manscaped 4.0 package. If you go over to manscaped.com and use the code LEVERAGE, LEVERAGE, you'll get 20% off and worldwide shipping for free. So that's manscaped.com. Use code LEVERAGE, and you'll get those packages in the mail. It'll come with this. It'll come with the shirt, the nice boxer briefs, the lawnmower, and I really can't recommend this highly enough. A lot of the other guys have told me that they've purchased it and they're super stoked with it. Male grooming down there, it's a big deal. It's a game changer. So don't look past it. Whatever else you have out there, I promise it's definitely not nearly as good as what Manscaped is offering. So pick up a pair. Your pair will thank you later.
Yeah, push pull is an interesting thing. We got so enmeshed so fast that we didn't even have time to do push pull. It was kind of like we were just like we became super inseparable, like super fast.
Right.
Which I think
Burning
is
Man
also...
will also facilitate that, of course. When you meet, and it's just like you're in this environment where a lot of those games and the usual stuff that would happen in like our normal cultural society. That's the cool thing about Burning Man is it kills those boundaries a lot of the time, and everyone's more authentic and just more like open and like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, you get to connect so much faster. But let me ask you this question. So how do you keep the polarity? How do you keep the heat
That's
exciting?
tough.
How...
Like it's tough when you're together all the time. But I always remind myself, I most like I feel like I don't really have to put a lot of attention on it, but I always try to remind myself to like not make my problems her problems, and not like a lot of times like I want to complain and I want to kind of start acting more, I guess, like a little boy, and just be like this, like I feel like, well, whatever. She's my wife. I should be able to vent. And then I'll stop myself and be like, you know what? That's my problem. If I do that, I'm probably gonna look a lot less masculine. Probably gonna lose some points in the attraction category. So I'm always, because of my, I guess, experience in the game and learning how attraction works and learning about masculine and feminine polarity, I feel like I've taken a lot of those lessons to the bank and been like, okay, in the past where I would have probably done this and looked, less attractive, I'll refrain from that behavior or just find a way to communicate in a way that's not quite so like simpy or whatever other words they use for it. Just look like, and she does it also. She very, very rarely like ever emasculates me, which I feel like is a huge sort of issue for a lot of people's relationships when a woman is emasculating a guy. And of course, you have to take responsibility. Like if you're getting emasculated, you're probably not acting very masculine, or you're like, you can ask the question, well, how did I get her to do that to me, sort of thing.
Going back
But
to responsibility.
Exactly. So I'm just kind of careful to make sure I'm like acting like a man and not like a little boy. And some weeks I'm better than others, but we've been married for what, 4 months now, 3 months, so it's still new, but we've been together for 2 years, so but
yeah
it's not something you can just like fall asleep at the wheel at, because
exactly.
if you do, you're fucked.
Yes, that's so well said. One thing that complaining like this first of all, I'm also learning this the hard way. Complaining is such a toxic thing, period. But it's so addicting, right? Or complaining, venting is like you get to just like, ooh, just to feel your righteousness, right? Like you get to feel right. I'm like, oh, that person fucked me. Oh, like life is so unfair, whatever. And we spend so much time and energy complaining. Whether you're single or in a relationship, complaining is just it's such an energy suck that energy could be put towards creating the life you want to be creating. And then complaining to your spouse, again, as you just said beautifully, it's just like it's just not attractive. It's no one likes people that complain. But then worst of all, and I was guilty of this, but we start complaining about each other, right? Like we start complaining about our spouses. And I think whoever's listening to this, one advice I could give you is just if you just stop complaining about your partner, whether you're a female or a male, like if you stop complaining about your partner, period, even in your head to yourself, that will transform your relationship, period. It will transform your life. And I had to, like, I'm so vigilant right now. Every time I feel this desire, and I feel it's such a strong desire because it's so yummy and juicy to kind of complain and to feel that energy. And I'm sure I can find so many people that will hear me out and agree with me and tell me, like validate me. And that's the addicting part. I get to feel validated. I get to feel seen. I get to feel heard. But I think it's such a waste of life, waste of energy that energy could be spent on something else. So that's a big
But
one.
yeah, I love that. It's such amazing advice. I mean, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I feel like I'm getting so much like like I'm like, oh, I would have fucked that up if we weren't talking about that now. Because yeah, complaining is so addictive and it's so like fun, and it's kind of like gossiping or something. Like a lot of gossiping is complaining, right? And yeah, you get all these juicy payoffs. You get to feel right, and you get to feel heard, and you get to, you get that connection with the person who's listening and who's validating you. But then at the end, like nothing's changing. Like now you're just more upset with that situation. You're more at odds with the person or the thing you're complaining about, and all of that energy is totally useless. Like it's just negative, right? It's not creating anything. Versus if you just don't complain about it and do something else, or figure out a way to make it so it's not something you would have to complain about. I mean, that's so much energy spent on the right things, I guess, than the wrong things. But yeah, complaining is just so addictive. It's
Yeah. One thing that could be replaced with, if that would take some effort, a lot of people struggle with this, but it's gratitude. Gratitude. It's like such a powerful emotion, right? And some people's like, I don't know how to do gratitude. Like, I don't like. Uh, it is a skill, but if you learn it, it would pay off dividends like nothing else. And so instead of complaining about life and your problems and your spouse, replace that with what you're grateful for, and you're gonna get a lot more of that. You know.
how do you go about that? I've heard of gratitude journaling. I know there's some apps for that where it wakes you. Like one thing I used to do, I used to journal every morning. And the interesting thing is, what would usually come out in the beginning was a lot of complaints and a lot of negative stuff. Sometimes I'd do banging away at my keyboard, F this, screw that. And usually by the end, I'd get to gratitude, not intentionally, just through that, I guess, cathartic process of getting all the shit out of my mind onto the computer note. But eventually, like it really allowed me to kind of move through a lot of these negative emotions. Then I get to a place of gratitude a lot of the time, and it's fun when I'm on a plane where I don't have Wi-Fi or something like that. What I usually do is I go back and I read those journal entries from years ago, and it takes me like right back into that moment. And it's fun, obviously, to like go down memory lane, but that's the thing that I noticed mainly about that journaling process, which I found fascinating, was like eventually you do get there, but you usually have to go through the kind of the shitty stuff to get there. So I'm curious, how do you
Yeah, I
how do
mean,
you get to
it's
do all that?
important, to don't, what you resist persists. So if you're feeling
Hmm.
shitty, I'm like, I'm not, I shouldn't feel shitty. I should feel grateful. Like it's bad to feel shitty. You're resisting yourself feeling shitty. But the moment you allow for the feeling of shitty, whatever that is, sad, angry, disappointed, grief, if you actually allow yourself to feel it and you actually go towards it instead of avoiding it, it kind of dissipates really fast. I mean, our feelings, we think our feelings are ours, but they're just like the breath, that we experience our feelings, but they're not us. A lot of times we say I am sad, and that's not a good languaging. I would say I'm experiencing sadness, but I'm not sadness itself, right?
Right,
So
I'm
I think
feeling
it's
sad.
great. Yeah, so it's great that to allow ourselves to feel our feelings, um, and then we usually, as you said, like when you let go, like like with love and gratitude and joy, I believe these are resting states. This is who we are at the core. And then when you let go of all the noise and all the stories and all the surface feelings and the quote unquote negative feelings, we always get on the bottom to love and joy and gratitude. And another way for gratitude that I think for people that are want to get better at this is to start with the most basic, simple things. Like you had a meal today. There's people in the world that didn't have a meal today. You have a place to sleep. You have a warm house. I mean, that's just start expressing your gratitude for these little things. Those are almost more powerful than the big things. The fact that you have someone to go to bed with. The fact that you have amazing friends and community and family, and then it's like everything else. It kind of starts to build on itself, and it starts to start living in your body, and you have to start to feel, it's like, wow, like life's pretty fucking awesome. Like life provides. I'm here. I'm taken care of. I'm alive, and you start falling in love with life. And I think when I met my wife, I was at that place. I was like, I think she was so attracted to me because at that time I was so in love with life. I was just like I was, like really happy with just with life. And falling in love with life, it's the easiest way I think to find an amazing partner and to keep your relationship alive. Because again, if you're in this complaining mode, and then that starts to downward spiral, and then she's complaining, then you're complaining, then you're complaining about each other, then you're complaining about each other, um, and it's just like I said, just such a waste of energy. Nothing happens other than like a drug, like you get this serotonin, you get this feelings of satisfaction like a drug, but nothing got solved, nothing got resolved, the problem didn't go away, nothing happened. um,
I find it interesting that you can take people with the same circumstances, and one can be incredibly happy while the other can be incredibly miserable. And I was never really sure how that could be, but I think from this conversation, my hypothesis is one person's complaining about it, and that complaining is just getting louder and louder and louder because they're finding people to complain to and people to validate them, and that becomes like how they feel about the situation, right? They get all that validation. I must be right. This is a terrible, shitty situation. Whereas someone else who's not complaining about it and doing the gratitude sort of exercises, and being like, okay, this is actually not that bad of a situation. It could be much worse. They're extremely happy about their life, and they see the good in things, and they're talking to people about those sorts of things. It just kind of dawned on me that that's how you get that's how you get to a lot of these people that are so miserable with so much, right? And there's other people with nothing that are incredibly happy.
yeah, we create our own misery until we really again take responsibility for your misery that we create ourselves. Recently I read this book of this what was her name, edit something. So this lady, she's in her 90s now, still alive.
The sex the
No,
sex
no,
girl, no, woman, no?
she's Auschwitz survivor.
Okay.
And her book talks about the biggest prison that we all live in, that's way worse than Auschwitz, is in our heads, right? Like we create these stories, and this we create our own misery, right? Like we could choose to be happy, and she talks about how you can even choose to be happy, choose something to hold on to, even in a place like Auschwitz. um so yeah, exactly, it's the people there. And another saying I like is change the way you see the world, and the world around you will change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's our eyes are not only viewers, but they're also projectors. We project onto the world what we see. And also we project, when you're complaining, you're projecting onto the world your complaints, and that's what you see everywhere. And then, God forbid, you start doing that in your relationship, and then you're creating the relationship from hell instead of one of intimacy and joy and connection and sexiness.
So did you find yourself kind of like on going through this process recently in the last few months where you were complaining and she was complaining, and then you guys had some space, and now you're feeling more gratitude? I mean, you seem like you're feeling a lot of gratitude. um, what was the process like for you to get out of you know the place you didn't want to be and kind of move into this other place where you feel a lot better?
Well, the, thanks for that question. When she left, it was like I was like, I want to face this. I want to because I want to face this, and I want to face it sober. I want to mean sober, not just alcohol or drugs, but I don't want to distract myself. So I stopped drinking. I stopped watching TV. I stopped. So I was just like, I'm just gonna face my pain. I'm gonna face my fear of being alone, my fear of dying alone. I would just be with that, and I start meditating like 2-3 hours a day, and like exercising, and just really choosing myself and going towards this pain. And that's when I start uh, kind of waking up and realizing it's like, oh my god, I just been in this rudder. I've been so defensive. I've been like, wow, this person that it was in front of me that I love so much, that I became a villain. I complained about her. I blamed her for things. I blamed her for the way the situation is, and I was like, wow, I just really didn't like the person I saw, and committed to changing that. And just even the last 2 months, I've taken a couple of workshops. I'm going to a workshop next week again for a week long. Have you heard of Joe Dispenza?
I've heard the name, but I don't
Yeah.
know exactly what the work is.
Uh, really, really powerful stuff. I can send you some stuff later. So I'm going to his workshop, which is a week long. Start reading a lot of books, start getting support. Uh, so just the decision to not run away from my pain, which in a sense I was doing that while I was in the relationship, has me realize all these things. And then I was like, I need to work with some other couples, help them not to go through what I'm going through. So, like I said, I've been working with some couples, having a blast, helping them to not do the things I did.
Yeah, like I said, this has been a very valuable conversation for me to to just kind of be aware of those potential, roadblocks ahead. Um, and I wanted to ask you, how did you manage the polarity question? Um, how did you feel like you did on that? Was that a? Oh, my wife's calling me. um, was that something that you found took a toll on the relationship, or did you manage that well?
uh no, this is the most embarrassing part, right? The seduction master. the 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 seduction guru, that I was. um I know I just was so stuck and defensive, and like even angry and resentful, and that I pulled away.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't manage to keep that polarity. So it's, especially, I mean, the last year was really bad, and that's kind of ultimately why she moved out. But you know, I I see. I mean, I think one thing that I'm just realizing how important this is, like, to be able to talk to your partner, and to be able to. It's so, for so many people, it's way easier to have sex than to talk about sex. Um, so have these conversations with your partner, like, how often should we have sex, and just kind of agree on the bare minimum. Like, is it going to be once a week or twice a week, and then it's up to both of you to, I mean, it's up to you, because you can only control yourself. You can't do
Right.
what she's going to do, but do whatever you can to keep up with that. And then if you have sex 5 times a week, that's awesome, but make sure that the bare minimum is, and talk about it and agree on it, and have these conversation, and what what so.
That can be a really tough one because it's like I heard the quote once: you can't negotiate desire, and I think that's true. But when you're in a relationship, especially a marriage, and you're living together, um, that's one thing that like that could just easily become something that's not that important, that you both just kind of let it slip. And it's not that you don't want to, it's just like, oh, whatever, can do that later. Or you don't give it the time it deserves, or like you said, you don't actually kind of create a schedule and get that bare minimum. Because I definitely, if too much time goes by where you don't have that sexual intimacy, that's when I feel like the problems start arising, the little stupid fights, the loss of polarity. and
Yeah.
everything goes awry. And I feel like it is as easy, like especially like I've had relationships before where they totally like, I was dating this one girl where she just wasn't like, in the beginning, the sex was amazing, everything was great, and then she started to pull away, and the more she pulled away, the more anxious and needy I got. Um, and then it got to the point where like I was even afraid to initiate sex because I was so worried that she would reject me, and like that's not a very attractive place to come from. And then I would complain to her about it, which was even less attractive. And it's like the more everything I tried to do to fix it only made it worse.
Yeah.
Um, and that it's like the common sort of story you see. It's like the guy in the relationship who can't get laid by his girlfriend or his wife. I'm like, how did I become this guy? This is as a dating coach, what kind of loser are you? But there's not a lot of like resources out there, and I feel like the majority of men are probably in that situation. You just hear it time and time again. I had to sleep on the couch tonight. Oh, maybe my wife will, let me get lucky tonight, that sort of thing. But I definitely fell into it in that past relationship, and now I'm super aware and hyper vigilant of not making those mistakes again. Because I feel like once you do, it's very hard to recover and get that polarity back sometimes. But yeah, I'm curious. Did you like? I guess my question is, do you feel like you guys can recover from that? Do you have any like anything that you're working on to recover? And I'm
I
not saying your situation was the same as mine. It could be totally different,
I
but
I
just in
th-
terms of polarity.
I believe anyone can recover from that if you're willing. It takes one person and understanding again polarity and the differences between men and women, and don't overcomplicate it. Like I said, like if a woman's listening to this and she's like, if you want to be the one to spark the initiation, remember, men need three things. And again, that sounds very superficial, but it's like sex, food, and and respect. Women, on the other hand, they want love, appreciation, and acknowledgement. These are things that are more important. Someone recently told me about Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he used to work with couples, and he had incredible success. And couple will come into his office. He'll say to the woman, "Okay, you go home. You're not a problem." And he talks to the man. And this is a simplified version, but and he's like, "Just tell her that you love her 50 times a day." And that's all you need to do. And people are like, "Wait, what? Like, do I have to mean it?" And he's like, "No, you don't have to mean it. Just tell her you love her 50 times." I said, "Why not 49?" "Well, 49 is not enough." "Well, what about 51?" "Well, 51 is too much. She'll get suspicious." So I don't know how true that story is, but actually a friend of ours, Daniel Johnson, who is also
Uh-huh.
married.
I had him on the podcast many years ago. I think like episode 19 or something like that.
Oh wow!
But yeah, tell me. I'm really curious to hear what he's up to.
Yeah, his marriage was in a really bad place. Someone that I would get on the phone and would get commiserate in her misery and complain about her wives, and I got validation and got to feel heard and seen and all that. He kind of turned it around. He took some online class or something, and then he's like he made it his goal to let her know 3 times a day, every day. One, that she's beautiful, that he loves her, and that he appreciates her. So tell her that you love her. And I mean, it's forget what I said about Dale Carnegie, but you mean it, be genuine.
Mm-hmm.
um, Tell
I
her
mean, even if you don't, though, it's still
it's
better than not doing it.
it's still better than not doing it. Exactly. Tell her that you love her. Tell her that she's beautiful in a creative, different ways every day, and tell her that you appreciate something about her. And if you do those, he did that consistently, and it took a month or two, and then completely turn around their relationship.
Yeah, I think I could have turned that relationship around, but I kind of went the lame version of like, I'm just gonna walk away from it.
Yeah.
and that definitely wasn't the right way to go about it. So that was a good reminder, because sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I did the right thing, but also it could have been turned around. I believe that.
Yeah, I believe if there's willing parties, um, if whether it's a man or a woman, it takes one thing that got me really stuck also, which this was a big revelation, and that was I was really stuck in this concept that it takes two to tango. And I was like, really, it takes two to tango. And then my wife's not cooperating. And how am I supposed to, I'm trying the best that I can. I'm here, I'm showing up, and she's not. And I was stuck in this. She's just not willing to dance with me. Like, what do I do if she's not willing to dance with me? And then Daniel was the one that first proposed this. Like, well, actually, it doesn't take two to tango. And then, like, say, he did just this one simple thing and managed to turn the relationship around. And a lot of people, like, so I would say check your beliefs, question them, explore them. If you're stuck in this takes two to tango, you never turn around your relationship, because it doesn't take two to tango. One person can turn a relationship around, and it starts with this responsibility. Whether it's the man or the woman, either one can turn the relationship around if the other person's still there, still showing up every day. A relationship could be turned around.
Yeah, it's you can start tangoing on your own until she's like, okay, I'm probably ready to tango a little bit too.
Yeah, but if you're sitting there beating her over the head that she's a bad tango dancer, you probably won't get far.
Well, I'm excited to see what transpires. With what's going on with you guys. It sounds like you're in a great sort of headspace about it, and I appreciate like you so vulnerably talking about everything. It's like I think these sort of conversations are so rare to have someone to be like, yeah, this is a situation, especially someone coming from the expertise that you have around dating and relationships and attraction and all that. So it's been an awesome conversation. I've really appreciated it.
Yeah, thanks, man. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Where can people follow you and find out about what you're up to?
Well, I guess YouTube is one place I've started sharing a lot of videos. I'm on Facebook, like obviously if you're watching this on Instagram, you can follow me on Instagram. I have a website that is my full name.com, like Hristiyan Atanasov, which is HRISTIYANATANASOV.com. I've had it for a long time. I've had many websites, but that's the one that just stuck around.
It's a good one to keep, I guess.
So yeah, my full name.com. You can connect with me there. So yeah, all the socials, I'm there. And yeah, I'd love.
I think we should do another interview in like a few months to see what happened, transpired with your story.
Yeah, I would love that. Oh, awesome, man! It was so good to talk to you, man. This is awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate
likewise.
It.
And it was a lot of fun. Hopefully the people watching, thanks for tuning in, and catch you soon.
Thanks for listening. If you want more, go to innerconfidence.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for the latest episodes.